Welcome to the Delish Guestlist podcast, a deep dive into the lives and work of Hong Kong's crazy food and beverage industry leaders, hosted by The Beat Asia. Today, we invited Susan Jung, Hong Kong's leading food and drinks critic for more than 25 years, author of her first book, Kung Pao and Beyond, Fried Chicken Recipes from East and Southeast Asia, a catalogue of Susan's favorite salty snack. Beyond her latest words spreading the good world of chicken in Asia, Susan writes about food for Vogue Hong Kong and is the Academy Chair for the Hong Kong, Taiwan and Macau region of the world's 50 best restaurants and Asia's 50 best restaurants rankings. Listen to her story, only on the Delish Guest List. We profiled you in August, and we interviewed and spoke about, a public profile of your entire history being in Hong Kong in the connection with SCMP, South China Morning Post, critiquing food and drink in Hong Kong, and then going on to your next move. And we sort of teased what we're going to talk about mainly and in public for the next half an hour, 45 minutes. But for those who don't know you and don't know who Susan Jung is, who are you?
I am Susan Jung. I am the author of a just released book called Kung Pao and Beyond, and it's all about fried chicken from East and Southeast Asia. And before that, I was food and wine editor for the South China Morning Post for almost 25 years, and I quit to write the book.
You joined just as the handover sort of was coming into Hong Kong, and Hong Kong's food scene was definitely not at the stage that it was right now. You spoke about in your previous coverage with The Beat Asia, Hong Kong has always been enthralled with trends. Why did you feel so, I don't want to say stuck, but so fixated on critiquing food and wine and drinks and beverages for 25 years?
Well, food reviewing was a small part of my work at the SCMP. I think I was most famous for writing my recipe column. I think food criticism in Hong Kong, there was me and there were a few other publications that actually looked at it as anonymously as possible, although towards the end for me it was difficult to be anonymous. But where we actually, went in there, paid for the meals, and of course expensed it, and where we didn't, say it wasn't a tasting like it was for some of the food criticism here. A lot of times with other publications, they would be invited to a tasting and then they would write it up as, I went to this restaurant and this is what we ate. It was basically what we ate rather than any kind of criticism or compliments. So the SCMP and a few other publications did write it where we actually paid for the meals and wrote it up critically.
Do you think food, not only in Hong Kong but in general, can't exist without critique?
I think if you just constantly praise without balancing it, it's not going to improve the chef, the restaurant, or the food scene in that whatever country or city you happen to be in. I think criticism is important, but it should be a kind criticism. There were restaurants that I decided not to review after I'd eaten there because there was nothing positive to say. And I didn't want to totally tear down the restaurant. I always did try to find something positive because just to say, everything was bad, I just wouldn't write that up. There was no point.
Interesting.
Although, a lot of people said, well, you actually should write negatively, but there's so many great restaurants out there, so why would I want to review a negative restaurant where I can only say bad things about it? I'd rather write about something that's good.
Did you like the anonymity?
I did, because when I realized that people were starting to recognize me, it was, I would always write into the review, I'd say I was recognized and they sent out all these extra dishes, because you actually want to try to have an experience that any normal guest is going to have. So when they recognize you, I'm sure that they're taking care of the food, making sure it's perfect when it goes out. The service is going to be better. So I was trying to get what any guest at the restaurant would have that kind of experience. But I know that I was getting a better experience.
So when you were famously outed by your former publication and then also in our profile on the Beat Asia publication, you showed your face. You then said, I'm working on this fantastic project, creating the cookbook. What was going through your mind when you wanted to now be public and also put your words public and attach your name to it?
Well, when I posted on Instagram, "Hey world, this is me," and I had my photo on it, that was the first time I have published my own photo.
Wow.
I think it is. I mean, I can't remember.
Ever?
Yeah. I can't remember that I would have published my photo. I used to get irritated with my friends. I'd say, no photos, no photos. Please don't publish photos of me. People would, if they didn't know me, and I didn't, I felt really weird about saying, take it down, please.
Yeah.
So I didn't. But it was the first time that I can recall that I published my own photo. It was actually really nice to not have to try to be anonymous anymore. So that's why I published it. That's why I said, this is me. I've just, I quit the S&P finally. I no longer have to be anonymous. And so, hey world, this is me.
I mean, 25 years is a long time to do anything, let alone work, but to do the same passion and continue that career. Were you almost tired about being anonymous and wanting to switch over to the other side and not critique, but to show a love for something?
Well, it is awfully nice to not have to be constantly thinking about, when I'm eating at a restaurant, when I was doing a review, I'd constantly be thinking I would be eating, but I'd also be looking around at the rest of the restaurant and trying to see what the experience that other people were having. And so when I finally got to just eat at a restaurant and just enjoy it, it's really nice. I much prefer this.
So I'm sure in the latter stages of your SCMP career, your food critique career, you had the idea of writing a cookbook. Why a cookbook about fried chicken, first of all? Because it's an out there topic.
But doesn't everybody like fried chicken?
Well, there you go.
I know. I love fried chicken. And it's a very popular dish. What's great about chicken is that it's a protein, a meat that people can eat no matter what their religion is. Unless you're a vegetarian, which isn't a religion, although people treat it as a religion, you can eat it in Muslim cultures, Jewish cultures, all kinds of cultures.
Absolutely.
I don't know of any culture. There might be some culture out there that doesn't eat chicken. But in most religions that I know, they can eat chicken, which is why when you get on a plane, you're asked by the air hostess, chicken or fish, because chicken is safe. It's also relatively inexpensive, and fried chicken is just delicious. People like fried foods. They might not cook it because they think it splatters all over the place. They think that it's messy, although it isn't necessarily messy. But fried chicken is just something that people love.
Yeah.
There are so many fried chicken shops. There's so many fried chicken, not just KFC, but also Jollibee, which I love. Jollibee is my favorite. But there's also McDonald's wings. There's so many different fried chicken shops out there. And a lot of them are specific to a certain country. When I was in Iran, I saw one that looked exactly like the KFC, the Colonel, but I can't remember what it was called. It was different letters, and it was not KFC, but at first glance, you'd think that it was KFC.
So to pardon the pun, and this is going to be terrible for our listeners.
Oh, no.
But was it the chicken or the egg? I just thought about that one. Was it the chicken being, I want to write a cookbook, I want to change my career in F&B? Or was it, I love fried chicken and I've had this love affair with fried chicken since I can remember. What do I want to do with fried chicken that it's going to popularize fried chicken in this medium?
Well, I always used to write for my recipe column. I wrote a lot of fried chicken recipes, and I actually had to stop myself from writing so many more fried chicken recipes because I thought, I don't want to bore people. I don't want to be too focus just on one subject. But then one of my colleagues said, Susan, your fried chicken recipes do really well online. Why don't you write a fried chicken book? And he was joking. And I thought about that for a while. And I was thinking, what a great idea. And so I pitched it, but I pitched it as Asian fried chicken. And in England or in the UK, Asians are India and the subcontinent Asians. Whereas in Hong Kong and Southeast Asia, it's East and Southeast Asians, it tends to be. Plus there's Central Asia, there's all other areas of Asia that I couldn't cover because the subject would have been too broad. So I focused it on East and Southeast Asia because that's what I know best.
Gotcha. And does this specificity as well allow you to look at the countries that are near and dear to you? Hong Kong, China, you got Japan, Korea, Philippines as well.
Yeah. There's so much really great fried chicken out there. Whenever, when you go to Singapore, of course you're going to eat shrimp paste wings at a hawker center because it's just delicious. When you go to Thailand, you can eat street food fried chicken. There's so much out there that a lot of people do not know about. And so when I first started writing the book, people were saying to me, is there really that many fried chicken dishes? And my brief was to write 60 fried chicken recipes, but I actually started off with 90.
How did you get to that 90?
Well, I only started off with 90 because I needed to narrow it down to 60. And so when I started off with a 90, I just jotted down all the recipes that I wanted to try. And then I realized that, this doesn't actually taste that great. Or this recipe is too much like that recipe, so I'll just skip it.
Sure.
So I fairly easily got it down to from 90 to 60.
So this fairly easy but large number of 60 exact different recipes, are these recipes that you knew, okay, I just can name 60 recipes of fried chicken off the top of my head?
No, I had to think about it for quite a while. It didn't come off just the top of my head.
But these recipes have been in your travels. They've been in your writing, in the meals that you've been eating with your husband, your friends, your family as well.
Well, a lot of them are adapted from other dishes, like salted egg chicken wings is quite unusual. I mean, I don't think I've ever tried it outside. I'm sure it exists. But it's usually salted egg prawns or salted egg something else. So to adapt it to a fried chicken recipe actually was very successful.
The book is in English, and obviously these are recipes for an international audience. Did you struggle bringing the ideas and the recipes from East and Southeast Asia in these native countries to an international audience?
No, because I think fried chicken, and like I said, it's pretty universal. And so even if it has lemongrass or shrimp paste or salted egg, ingredients that not everybody outside this area are familiar with, I think the taste of most of the ingredients can be pretty appealing, even if you haven't grown up with it.
Yeah. You obviously researched and cooked a lot of fried chicken. How long did that take?
It was 3 months of eating fried chicken at least once a day.
Wow.
Because sometimes I would make it for lunch and dinner. And my poor husband, Nigel, he was mostly very patient, except when he was in quarantine. And I think he was in quarantine the last time for a week or maybe longer. Anyway, I'd say, "Hi, darling, I'm bringing you fried chicken." And he said, on the last couple of days, "I don't want fried chicken." And I said, "Oh, but you should try this one. It's really good." "I don't want fried chicken." And I said, "But really, you should try this one." "I don't want fried chicken." And then he called me up and he said, "Just want to make sure you're not bringing me fried chicken."
What did you bring him?
Oh, something else. Poor boy. I guess when you're in quarantine, you really want to eat things that you're craving, and he wasn't craving fried chicken at that point.
He doesn't understand your decades-long love for fried chicken.
He likes fried chicken, but I guess not every day.
Hey, I'm Natsuki Arita, the editor for the Delish Guestlist podcast, dropping in with a very special message. This episode is brought to you by Italian Week Hong Kong 2023. From May 29th to June 4th, in partnership with the Italian Chamber of Commerce, we're celebrating Italy's finest culinary traditions right here in Hong Kong. Indulge in authentic Italian cuisine at top dining establishments with special events and exclusive offers. So, mark your calendars and join us for Italian Week Hong Kong 2023. For more information, visit italianweek.hk. Well, back to Susan.
So going back and rewinding to even before your cookbook, what point in your life did you start to have this liking towards this fried food?
Ever since I was young. I mean, the first recipe in my book is my mom's fried chicken.
Wow.
And something that she made for us, every once in a while. We just loved it, me and my brothers. So whenever she'd say, what do you want for dinner? We'd say, your fried chicken. And it didn't have a name. It was just fried chicken. So I gave that recipe, and it's very easy. A lot of my recipes call for double frying. So the first frying cooks the chicken, and the second, and it's done at a slightly lower temperature. The second frying, which can be done right before you serve it, so all the other work can be done in advance. The second frying is at a higher temperature, and it crisps up the exterior. So the skin is crunchy. But with her recipe, it's fried once, and then you bake it. So it's kind of unusual. I don't know where she got the recipe from. I've asked her, and she doesn't remember where.
Is that important to double fry, to double prepare chicken in this way? Is that the signature to your cookbook?
No. It's done in a lot of recipes. A lot of people think that the technique came about through Korean fried chicken, which I call KFC. But
Sure.
It's actually the other KFC, and it's the better KFC. They attribute it to Korean fried chicken. Korean fried chicken is double fried, but the technique came before KFC. It's just that Korean fried chicken made it famous.
Coming from a background of Toy Sunny's ancestry from southern China, growing up on the West Coast, California, in America, then migrating to Hong Kong more than 25 plus years ago, do you think you have this unique perspective of this Western and Eastern influence that you're bringing towards this cookbook?
Well, I think a lot of the stuff that I grew up with, when you're a kid growing up as a racial minority in a country, you tend to think that whatever you're growing up with is common to other people as well. So there's things that I ate when I was a kid that I didn't realize that it was anything unusual, like turkey with rice. Whenever we had Thanksgiving turkey, we had it with white rice. We also had it with stuffing and, a lot of the other, what are considered traditional accompaniments. But I never realized that serving turkey with white rice was unusual until I made my own turkey dinner for friends, and they were saying, what's on the menu? And I said, turkey, stuffing, rice. And they said, what kind of rice? Pilaf? And I said, no, rice, white rice. And it wasn't until then that I realized that not everybody eats turkey with white rice. Same thing with fried chicken. My grandmother had a repertoire of about 5 non-Chinese dishes. One of them was fried chicken, and she served it with spaghetti.
Oh, no.
So until I moved out of the house, I didn't realize that not everybody serves fried chicken with spaghetti.
Apart from Jollibee.
Yes, apart from Jollibee.
And is that why you like Jollibee?
No, I don't really like Jollibee's spaghetti. I think it's too sweet.
Yeah.
But I do love their fried chicken, and I love their mango peach pie.
Oh, I had that when I went to Manila late last year. It is superb.
It's so good, right?
Yeah.
They have it here. My only complaint about it is that it's too small. It's teeny.
I'm going to have to find it.
They have it at the Jollibees here.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay,
I buy it, but I have to buy 2. One is not enough.
So going back to that cookbook, it's almost as if fried chicken is a medium to tell the stories of Eastern and Southeast Asian cooking, essentially, to Western audiences.
Well, it's one representation of a lot of cuisines. There's so many cuisines are so broad. It used to be that people thought of Chinese food as one cuisine, but it's not. There's so many regional variations, and they're all different. It's impossible to actually say, how can you say that Cantonese food is like Sichuan food? They're entirely different. So same thing with so many other different cuisines. Like in the book is a recipe for Thai street food fried chicken, and I served it to some friends. One of my Thai friends who's from Bangkok said, this doesn't taste Thai. And then another friend who's from northern Thailand said, it's very northern Thai.
Wow.
So my Bangkok friend knows a lot about food, but she had never tasted this version. So, and she can't say that it's wrong because my northern Thai friend said, yes, it's actually tastes very, very authentic. So, there's just so much about food that the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
How many regions, countries, cities even, are you focusing on in the book?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No. Because, well, the thing is there's also a recipe for Vietnamese butter chicken wings.
Wow.
I have never eaten Vietnamese butter chicken wings in Vietnam. I don't know if it exists as a real dish in Vietnam.
Because I see it quite a lot in Vietnamese restaurants in Hong Kong.
Yeah. Outside Vietnam, you get it. So I don't know if it's actually a real Vietnamese dish or if actually, the Vietnamese immigrants to whatever country created the dish as something that their new countrymen would like. It's very appealing and it can be so delicious. But I don't know if it's really Vietnamese.
So going back to those 3 months where you just ate and did some more eating of fried chicken, did you surprise yourself about how in-depth you could go with chicken recipes and what you discovered about these recipes and these cuisines in Asia?
Well, I realize now that I could have included so many more recipes. I'm thinking, why didn't I include Japanese convenience store fried chicken? Famichiki is so delicious, from Family Mart. And when I was in Japan in February, there were other fried chicken recipes that I should have included. And I think there needs to be a Gongbao and Beyond Part 2.
Do you think you would?
No. My husband would probably get really irritated.
What do you hope for people to gain from using this as a cookbook?
Well, I hope they realize that making fried chicken is not nearly as messy as you think it is. I mean, that people say, I never fry. Can I bake these recipes? And I said, well, you can try, but it's not going to be nearly as good because baking or even, cooking it at a high heat in the oven isn't going to give you that nice crisp skin. So when you fry, everybody says it's messy, it splatters all over the place. But if you do it correctly, it doesn't, because one of the reasons chicken spatters or any ingredient spatters in the hot oil is that because of moisture. But if you coat it correctly, which is meaning coating it thoroughly, it's not going to spatter as much.
Moving on to our rapid fire questions, Susan.
Oh, no.
I know. It's scary. You have less than 30 seconds to come up with a few words to answer each question. If you fail to come up with an answer within 5 seconds, we'll be lenient. We'll move on to the next one. Are you ready?
No.
Wings, breast, or thigh?
Wings.
What was your favorite destination to travel to?
Japan.
Can you tell us about a time you experimented with a recipe that didn't go well?
Oh, it happens all the time, and it's so frustrating. I get really grumpy.
Really?
Yeah.
Can it ruin your day?
I serve the food, and I get really grumpy, and Nigel says, what's wrong? And I said, it doesn't taste good. And he said, it's okay, it's edible. And I said, it's still not delicious.
What's the most recent fiasco?
Fortunately, when I was cooking for myself, when I came back from London, and I made a dish that I make all the time, which is Korean jjigae. And I made it in London, I made it here. I've made it many times before, and it just didn't turn out. I don't know why.
You've got to fly to Seoul.
Yeah, I am flying to Seoul in a couple of weeks.
Nice. What is your most favorite restaurant in the world?
Oh, impossible. Sorry.
Really?
Yeah.
That's too big of a question for Susan Jung.
If I had to choose one place, it would be the chairman. The chairman in Hong Kong.
Wow. Why?
Because so many of the dishes that I eat there bring back memories of what I ate as a kid. The first time I was served their steamed fish with pork fat and preserved tangerine peel, I put it in my mouth and I said, this is something my mother used to make. And it just brought back so many wonderful memories.
Wow. What is the biggest lie you have ever told someone?
Don't want to say.
We can beep this out.
Beep? No.
If you weren't writing a cookbook about fried chicken, what meal or plate or thing would you be researching and talking about?
The book I want to write most in the whole wide world is on innards.
Why?
Because I love innards and I think that they're really underused.
Huh. And what cultures embrace innards?
All kinds of cultures. I mean, when I was in London this time, one of the things that I eat often when I'm in Hong Kong is called gopjang. It's a Korean dish of beef, small intestines that you can cook it in other ways, but I tend to cook it in a wok with potatoes and chives, and it's really delicious. And I buy it frozen, and it comes in a 180-gram pack, and it's just enough for me for my lunch. But in London, I couldn't find it. But I live in a Turkish area, and they have lamb intestines. And I said, it looks right. I wonder if it's the same thing. So I bought it. It came frozen in a kilo pack, which is a lot. And I bought it, and they looked very clean. They didn't smell like disgusting. So I cooked them. And although they were lammier a little bit stronger than beef intestines, it really, fed my craving.
Tell me a guilty pleasure of yours that only those in your inner circle would know.
I don't feel guilty about any food that I eat. I eat potato chips. I am a total junk food junkie. I love instant noodles, but I don't feel guilty about it.
Hence you're writing a cookbook about fried chicken.
And one of the recipes uses an instant noodle coating.
Oh.
But I really love instant noodles. And everybody says, but they're so bad for you. And I'm like, I don't eat it every day. I think any food in moderation is not bad for you.
Yeah.
I love Coke. Everybody is surprised about that. They think, when I used to be food editor, you're the food editor and you like Coke. Why don't you like fine wine? And I said, I don't dislike fine wine. It's just that there are times when Coke hits the spot.
Fair enough. What is your favorite city to dine in?
Oh, can I say all of Japan is a city?
We'll take that. Imagine you're on death row. What is your last meal?
Everything. Okay, there's these little birds that I love, which you can't find in Hong Kong anymore. They're called rice birds or yellow flower birds. And they're these teeny weeny little birds that are about the size of, how big is that? 2 inches?
Yeah.
And you get them in the rice paddies of China. They descend on the ripening rice. So they set up a net with very fine holes on one end of the rice field, and they beat drums or make loud noises on the other. So the birds get startled and fly into the net, and that's how they're captured. Their noses or beaks get caught in the net. And they're the most delicious things. You eat the whole thing except for the beak.
Wow.
You used to be able to get them very easily in Hong Kong. I'd call up a restaurant, because the season is about 2 weeks long, and I'd call up restaurants and I'd say, do you have rice birds? And they'd say, yes or no. And when they were in season, they'd say, how many dozen do you want? So you'd order them by the dozen.
Dozen?
Yeah. And on a plate would come 12 dead rice birds. And they're the most delicious things in the whole wide world. I just love them, but you can't get them in Hong Kong anymore.
So if you kill someone with kindness, you're getting a dozen rice birds.
I want more than that. And I want to share it with friends, because I've introduced this to so many people. And at first they look at it and say, that looks really disgusting. And it kind of doesn't look very pleasant, but it's really good.
What tips would you give to someone just starting out with bonsai care?
Buy a cheap one, because you're probably going to kill it.
What's your go-to 15-minute meal to make when you're feeling lazy?
Oh, instant noodles.
What is one thing that you prefer about writing books versus articles online and in print?
What I love about writing books is that the deadline tends to be further away. So you feel less rushed, although I was very disciplined with this one. And I actually was testing recipes for 3 months, and then I started writing the book. And I actually turned it in about a week late, and I felt terribly guilty. And I emailed the publishers, and I said, I'm so sorry my book is late, a week late. And they said, Susan, in publishing terms, that's on time, because they give you a deadline, but it's more or less because most people do tend to be late.
If you chose to not enter the F&B industry, bake pastries, or write about restaurants, what would you have done for a career?
I would have been a bonsai artist.
And finally, what are you cooking in the coming months that you can share with us on the Delish Guestlist podcast?
What am I cooking? I can't think of anything. I think through my stomach. So whatever my stomach craves, I cook.
Good. Nice. Keep your finger on the pulse and tap follow to keep up with The Beat Asia to hear more colourful chats and rich stories. This episode is hosted by myself, Ruben Verbes. Big shout out to Susan Jung for coming on the Delish Guestlist to share her story. Our producer for this episode is Marcus Tremer, and we are edited by Natsuki Arita. That's all for this episode. See you in the next one.